That's a transformational story, going from having nothing to a product that makes $50K a month.
Steven is a tech founder who built and sold a 7-figure software company after scaling it in 12 years to millions in a 25-person team, earning a spot on the Inc. 5000 magazine. His company has created products and backend systems for more than 75 startups, mid-sized firms, and Fortune 10 giants like Apple, NBC, and more. Now he's turned his tech expertise into a content engine and a plug-and-play content system designed to give any business a full production department for only a few $1,000s.
Since I was a little kid, I liked building things and trying to get people to buy it. That force in me is stronger than all of the insecurities I have, which I have a lot of. Because what does automation do? It only helps you scale or save money. It doesn't do anything other than that. Most people try to automate things before they've even actually done it in real life. And when there's an interest in the marketplace, that's usually a good sign that there's a product there.
How does someone get to making a $5,000 SaaS product using AI?
We'll talk about how do you build an AI product that you can sell for $5K and not have to actually do any work for anybody. You're very exposed. You're fumbling, you're making mistakes, and you're getting harsh comments. If you don't get complaints, then you've got nothing to improve.
How do I find it? Where do I go? What do I do? What have you done? Steven, thank you so much for being on the show. Real quick question. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to watch this show that are going to want to get value from it. So can you let the audience know what is the value they're going to get from watching this podcast?
Yeah. So on today's podcast, we're going to talk about how you can go from not having any product at all to going to a product that you can sell for anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 per sale. And it scales. It's not done for you work. So we'll talk about how do you build an AI product that you can sell for $5K and not have to actually do any work for anybody.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are creating these AI agencies, and that's one way you can go into, or you do these ad hoc, one-off type of things.
Right.
But one of the things that I've seen you do really well is you create these SaaS products, and then you bolt these SaaS products on to then scale it out. And you do it also to build your brand online. Can you talk to me a little bit about your process of how you go about engineering these highly complex systems and what you've built at the SaaS product?
Yeah, the way I do it is I usually am just looking at something that I have to do myself anyway, and I start to solve the problem. So the way I ended up creating the product that I have now, the Content Engine Database, which is an AI automation product that helps you streamline your content creation at the core of it. That's what it helps you do. And the way I got started, I was creating a lot of content on LinkedIn and all these different platforms. It was a pain. So I just started to solve those problems. And then I just started to make videos about those problems in various different ways. And when I started to see that those would go viral, it just started to make me think, it's like, oh yeah, a lot of people are interested in this topic. A lot of people don't want to create content. So things that help them create content faster is interesting to them. When there's an interest in the marketplace, that's usually a good sign that there's a product there. Now, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to go from that interest to product, but that's how I did it. And I come from an agency background, so I've helped people build technology for my whole life. And it is a way to make money, but I have found that creating a product that you can sell over and iterate on just that one product instead of having to build all these custom solutions for all these different clients, which gets real hectic. It's just a cool way to make a living.
Great. And with the product you made, it's this content engine database. Can you talk to me about, you started it in one way, but what have you been able to generate in terms of income for yourself?
Right. Yeah. So I've had months where I've generated well over 70,000. I think we had a $100,000 month. In general, I was able to keep it at about 50 grand a month. And so selling, 10 of them a month, and then not having to actually do a lot of work for each of those specific clients.
Can you talk to me about a bit of the flow of what the content engine database does? Are you taking content? How does it work?
Yeah. So at the core of it, it's a content organizational system. So you see online, there's a lot of content automation stuff, and people take this and they do all these different fancy things. And those are cool to an extent. But when an organization is actually creating a lot of content, not like just building a fancy toy that looks cool, that will get a lot of views, because people do like these solutions. They are cool. But when an organization is actually creating content, there's a lot of organization that needs to take place in terms of creating folders and managing ideas and managing the process and managing team members. And you got thumbnails and videos and reviews and notifications, all this stuff that's going around. And there's all these fancy things you can do with AI as well. But at the core of it, what an organization needs is a tight organization without having to think about a lot of that stuff. Because when content is hard, and if you have to add in all just the organizational difficulties, it just makes it a pain. So trying to attack some of those core issues is what the database really does.
Got it. So it's a way to be able to take this data, organize all the structure, and then really make I would say like a content production schedule a lot simpler, more streamlined.
Exactly. And then once you have it organized and streamlined, then of course you can add on all the cool AI stuff that we have now where you can repurpose things. But it has to be organized first. Otherwise, everything's a one-off. So if you create a document that has an email in it and you feel like that could be turned into tweets or all these different things, that's only possible if it's organized. You have the ID where all these things are so that you can then build these other automations that are going to help you scale that.
Do you have kind of like a core piece of content that then gets repurposed? Like, for example, you have a podcast that gets cut up into a social media.
I think that's what most people try to do. Yeah. So I've got my YouTube video. The thing is that it's interesting is because every source piece of content has its own ability to be translated into other things, right? If it's a tutorial, it's harder to find good clips. It's not impossible. It's just harder. It takes more time and more energy, and maybe something is missing. Obviously, on a podcast, it tends to be a little easier because there's a segment of the podcast that could just be pulled out and it makes sense and everything. But yeah, like ultimately in most people's content strategy, there is a core piece and you try to get creative on how you repurpose that as best as possible.
Yeah. With podcasts, you have these like hot clips or hot takes that you can then pull out and repurpose. It is easy. How do you do that with YouTube videos? So
as the same thing ends up happening, you have to be careful. You have to go through it and look. There's not always a clip, but somebody has to take the effort to go look. Usually what you're looking for is, hey, does this clip have the complete idea? Like, can you pull it out from the clip and have it make sense?
Because I know part of it would be like humans going through and watching it. What other areas do you use AI and automation for the systems? What things are automated, especially with N8N? What parts do you use for that?
Yeah, where you can automate things is like where you've developed a real good process manually. So if most people try to automate things before they've even actually done it in real life, once you've identified, hey, I've got this source piece of content. I have a school community, and on that school community, we have a Q&A call. So it's pretty easy to take that Q&A call, take the transcript, break it up into, hey, what were all the topics discussed? Mm-hmm. And this is just a very simple N8N automation. It's not very complicated at all. It's just taking a transcript and then analyzing it for what are the good topics, and then asking it, out of all these, what was the best topic? And then having a basic format of how it can turn that into an email. And that works really well. And it's very simple. It's like a 4 or 5 step process. But you need to be organized in order for this to happen. So that's the key, is that all of these files, the Zoom recordings, or wherever these things take place, if they're just all scattered about, when somebody goes to sit down to do these tasks, it's just very cumbersome to try to do that on a day-to-day basis. Like, you're reinventing the wheel every day.
When you do this, like when you start to build out these systems, because part of it, we're moving through an evolution, right? The evolution of, okay, first I got to find what's working in the marketplace. Where is some interest? And then you go, you start to build that out, do a manual process, shift that to some automated processes, and then throw AI on top of it. I'm curious about the elements that you do. So once you find something that is needed in the marketplace, and you talked about these, you saw some hits. Let's start there. And what I'd like to do is move through these phases of, okay, this is one chunk of it, and then how do we evolve it? So beginning the needs in the marketplace, what suggestions would you have, or have you seen to be able to find what AI automation SaaS product should I build?
You got to think, there's not as many options as people think. Content has obviously been the lead generation space. So it's like the making money space. And then there's funnels and CRMs, which is going to be more like chatbots and voice agents and stuff like that. So when you break a business apart, there's lead generation, and then there's funnels and CRM, which is going to be chatbots and voice. And then on the back end, which I don't see as many people talking about, is like project management and like that kind of thing. So depending on where a business is, those topics are going to be interesting to different people. And so the thing is, within each of those industries, like lead generation, I picked content. And my whole thing was, okay, here's how you're going to make a bunch of content with as little work as possible. So you're trying to find something like that in each of these little spots, is like because what does automation do? It only helps you scale or save money. You got to put it down into simple terms like that, where somebody's, oh, this is interesting. Because the reality of most of this stuff is that it's boring. It's really just an automation. When it's really working for a business, it's probably pretty simple, and it works for 6 months without anybody touching it. Otherwise, you don't really get the value from an automation.
Yeah, there's the razzle dazzle of seeing these amazing 50-step multi-agent systems that may not really produce any business value, versus at the back of the day, there's a thing that I've noticed, that when you try to put that razzle dazzle inside of businesses and it just doesn't work, then you lose trust.
Oh yeah. To be honest, like most of the stuff it's all junk.
From what I've seen, the basic boring stuff are the things that actually work and scale. And one of the things is organization. And I know on the front side, a lot of people you either need more leads or I need more time. And that's usually one of the two sides. So front end is leads, sales, marketing. The other one is really the operational type of things
or it's both. It could be both, but yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing to do. I need some more leads. And then on the other side is, okay, cool. Now I've got all these leads.
The problem with the lead thing is like the lead, like if you're an automator, you're not going to be able to help someone generate more leads unless that person already has some sort of lead generation system in place. Because when you think about an automation, the only way you're going to be able to come into a business and implement something pretty quickly that does something that's valuable is either there is an existing lead generation system that works that you can analyze and improve. So you can say, oh, look, like you've already got this system. It's producing 3 leads a week, which is pretty good. You don't realize that you're missing this. And now we can make it 6. It's very easy to justify your price if you can do that. But that customer would have already needed to have that something in place. Because if they don't have that first thing in place and you don't really know much about lead generation, it's going to be very hard for you to come in as an automation expert and set them up a lead generation system because you don't know anything about setting up leads. Maybe.
It depends on what the company is. There are AI automation companies that do lead generations. They do cold emails. They do a bunch of different SEO.
Well, they probably, but if they, yeah, I mean, they may have specialized that. I'm talking about somebody that's brand new. If you're brand new to automations and you have a hard time getting leads for your own business, then you probably shouldn't be helping people set up lead generation systems to start because you're probably not going to do a very good job at it.
For sure. Yeah. You wouldn't want someone out of shape telling you how to get fit in the gym. It makes sense with the same kind.
But if you're learning AI automations and somebody already has a lead generation system or they already have processes, it is easier to just evaluate it and say it could be better.
For sure. Yeah. Because I think a lot of mistakes that people make is they try to go in and build a system that is not necessarily an additive, but it's more of a brand new thing. And that's
and they don't know enough about the business to do a good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the thing is, if you go into a business that has a lead generation system already, and then you work with them and you learn about how their system works, and let's say they're financial advisors, I'm just picking that out. And then you learn, okay, this is a way to generate leads for financial advisors. And then you help improve that thing. Then you're probably more capable of going to financial advisors and saying, hey, I could set you up a lead generation system from scratch, right? Then it makes more sense. In the beginning, it's better to find things that I think saving people time is easier when you're starting.
Yeah. Going in and automating a process that someone's already doing is out the gates the easiest thing to add value, because simple, boring automations that grabs data from an email and then puts it into a database, or it sends a Slack notification. A couple of these little nodes that are connecting dots, they're these little micro slices that add value. But I think they try to get into a lot of people want leads, but then you're compounding I got to get good at leads and I got to get good at automation and I got to get good. It's
too many things to get good at it in a short period of time. Yeah.
Talk to me about the part of the things that you built, a content automation system that you created, a database. Primarily what it does is brand awareness and lead generation. Do you primarily bring those into businesses that already have some sort of existing content pipeline? Or
it does work better with people that know how to create content because they're going to get the most value from it. Yeah. Because what automation does is that it draws in people that are interested in things because they're not doing it and they just think it's going to make it easier. So when someone sees a content automation system and they're not creating content yet, a lot of people do buy the system because it makes it look easier, but you still got to create something. And so businesses that are already creating, they don't have that initial hurdle. If I give you a nice shiny system and you buy it because it's going to make it easier, it will make it easier, but it won't create something out of nothing. It works better with someone that's already creating, because getting someone to create is not an easy thing. There's so many other things that they need other than a system.
Yeah. I've seen that really in the case of, I know I need to market, but I don't really want to make content. But then you have a balance of, I want to be authentic and I want to be myself and that kind of stuff. It goes, okay, you can do an AI clone, but it's not going to be you. It's not necessarily going to be the highest value. Has there been anything that you've done, seen people, whether it's company that needs to make more content? Is there things that you've been able to help them with to be able to make more content? Have you had any like real talks?
Okay. Yeah. When a company is actually making content already, there's so many things that can be done to help improve the process, because part of it is just getting a lot of the time back from the people that already are doing things and giving them more time to do creative stuff. Like if you're in the minutia of tracking things down and reinventing the wheel every time, always having to find documents or ask people where things are, that takes up a ton of time. And so just to get rid of that and then to give people a lot of their creative time back, it can easily double their output. And not even double the output, but just make the stuff that you're creating a lot better. Because the more time you put into something, usually the better it is. There's diminishing returns, of course. But when you spend more time on a video, it's usually better, and it usually does better, and all the things around it are better.
Yeah. So if you can free up your time with the in between the producing of the content to the actual output of it, publishing of the content, then yeah, you have more time to focus on what matters, which is, I think one of the things I've seen you be really good at is you are good at abstracting out and cutting out any of the things that don't serve you to be able to focus on this deep work of building, deep work of creating. Can you talk to me about that philosophy?
The philosophy is simple. It's just that I've learned that like when you're doing a business, there's only a few things that really matter at any given stage. And if you don't have any customers, then you got to spend most of your time getting customers. That usually means spending 4 or 5 hours a day getting customers, which is usually hard for people to think about because they think, oh, I need to be going to doing these other things. I need to be building a website and doing this and doing that and building out all these automations and setting up a big studio. In a nutshell, that's the philosophy. It's just people need to be better at being realistic with what they really need and what they want, and then making sure that they're building a business that makes sense, that can actually achieve that. The reason why I tell people to try to target a $5,000 automation is because anything less than that, you're going to need a lot of customers to get to your basic requirements for living. So you want to build something of value and something meaty enough to where when you make a sale, it's a significant purchase so that you need fewer customers and so that you can do a better job for each of those customers.
How does someone get to making a $5,000 SaaS product?
If you're really systematic about these things, I think it's a lot easier than people make it out to be. I think the problem that people have actually is just that there's a lot of different advice online, and every day you log on, you're following a new process. But what's going to make an automation valuable? Like we talked about in the beginning, if somebody is already producing 2 or 3 leads already on their own, if you double that, and each of those customers is worth a couple $1,000s, it's not very hard to generate value. So you have to be good at like interviewing people and getting to know their business very quickly. You want to get good at meeting people so that you can ask them about their business. It's, hey, where's the main bottleneck right now? And helping them diagnose like where the bottleneck in the business is so you can focus on it and offer them something. Because if you can tie it to generating more leads or saving time, and if you can legitimize it and show people, hey, not only can I give you this result very quickly, but you won't have to do any work. It'll be installed in the next 2 weeks. People are like, oh, in 2 weeks, you're going to be able to give me this result. It starts to become a little bit more math than just this kind of fungible thing that's in your head. You're trying to say, how could I charge $5,000? If you give them a result that increases leads or saves them time, and then you compound that over a year and you install it in 2 weeks, it's starting to sound pretty valuable.
So you first step process, interview customers in the space, ideally not starter companies, like helping solo founders that have a lead.
That's the thing. Like if there's so many people out there that are interested in automation that will use up your time to talk to you about solutions for their business, but you want to be talking to people that actually have a real need. And who should be automating their business other than a business that's got real customers and has some revenue coming in? Don't talk to people that don't have money.
And that's the part where you get started with by doing, hey, I'm going to do either some at cost or ad hoc or free work for you to get that base in. So you start to deconstruct those valuable businesses and you're building things for those types of people. And then you can service those needs. Obviously, you want to work with a family office that's got their own funds is definitely much better than Bob, who's trying to quit his day job to start a business.
And this seems so obvious, but this is probably one of the more important points that people should be realizing, is because when you're out there online and you are making videos, a lot of the times you are a starving entrepreneur And so sometimes your language will be to attract other starving entrepreneurs, just because you're using language like a starving entrepreneur. So you want to talk to real business owners. If you want to be respected by a real business owner, you got to say stuff that matters to them. Hey, if you're making more than a couple $100,000 a month, your business is growing, and you realize that you're wasting a bunch of time managing your team, then you should be thinking about this automation. And now you're talking to people that could actually afford to do something meaningful with you, as opposed to the guy that will just talk your ear off. Poor entrepreneurs coming together, they'll waste a bunch of time just talking to each other, and neither one of them will hire each other.
You get stuck in they call it entrepreneurship kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want those customers. Not only will they waste your time, but they will also pull your focus away from something that's more meaningful.
Finding these high valuable potential customers, interview them, going through the process of figuring out what their needs and wants, whether it's a front-end marketing or a back-end operations, and go, okay, this is the thing that I think that they could need that I could build.
And there's two types of people too. There's going to be business owners that have money that are interested in automation already. And maybe that business owner has thought through a couple of things that they have ideas for already. So you want to suss that out early. You want to know, is this person just like interested in this stuff and they have some of their own ideas that we need to flesh out a little bit? Or is this somebody that doesn't even know anything about these AI automations? Right.
Yeah. And it's better when people are interested and they do know that there's a need, they need to get behind it. And I think a lot of business owners know that they should. They sometimes just don't have clarity on the what and or the how.
Some people's ideas are better than others, right? So sometimes business owners come up with these ideas, but they probably shouldn't build them. What you always want to do is, regardless of anything, you want to tie it back to how will this actually make an impact? Because there's really, like we mentioned, there's only two types of automations, like ones that help you scale or make more money or save money. But there's really a third type, which is just experimental. This is interesting and just building things. Yeah. And there's some room for that.
Yeah. That can bite you in the butt though.
There's some room for that. But usually companies that do that have more money to spend and experiment. It's really R&D than it is.
Yeah, the R&D can be interesting. I just notice whenever I've built things for clients and then it's more of like exciting, but doesn't really move the needle. There's a point where they get frustrated. Nothing.
It actually does. It backfires. Yeah.
Yeah. They're excited. And then all of a sudden they're like, nothing's working, throw their hands up, quit, rinse, and then go back to old behaviors. There has to be we'll experiment for this amount of time. And then at this juncture, we're now going to make a decision on what is the best thing. Because there's the explore, exploit model, right? You explore to see what's the possibilities, which is R&D. Exploit means you've picked in the path and now you're driving down that path to get results.
Yeah. When you're working with clients, you should be trying to exploit. Mm-hmm. When you're maybe creating content or marketing, you can do more experiments that are interesting. Compartmentalize these things. Simple, just understanding how to compartmentalize these things so that you don't turn experiments into businesses. It's actually quite obvious when you talk about it out loud, but people do these things all the time where they'll experiment, they'll create something cool and think that's an actual business, but it's not really.
Yeah. I've seen so many developers that want to start their own business and they get an idea in their head and then they spend 6 months building that idea thinking it's going to be the bee's knees. And then they come back, they show the world and they realize that nobody wants it. And then they're like, oh man, I'm going to go get my day job again.
So the secret here is, okay, and this is really hard for people to do because it's very regimented, but you basically want to come up with an idea that you think is very practical, that you think will exploit something. Then you want to create a very small prototype of it that isn't necessarily the full thing, but it allows you to demonstrate your idea. And then you can make content around that. You can gauge people's response and you can play around with it that way. And then depending on the response, then you can know whether you're going down a good path or not. It's not to say that whatever your idea was is a good one, but if there's no response at all, it could be just that you had a bad video, but it could also be that just whatever you're trying to touch on, it's not making sense to people. The idea might be good, but you might not be explaining it well, or it just doesn't sound that interesting enough. Like you haven't presented it in such a way that it takes off.
Yeah. And with that, what I've seen interesting is that there's this kind of thing that I've seen you do really well, which is you have a core product concept, this content engine database, and then you build this in public over time, right? And then as you build this in public over time, you then have a series of this content showing the thing that you made, and then you slam that all together as one full product, release that into the marketplace, and then move on to something else. Right.
Or don't move on to something else. Just keep iterating on it, making it better.
That's what I'm saying. Because I don't think the content database was, I don't know what version you're on, but I think you've had several versions.
I've had many versions of it. Yeah. I just keep reinventing it.
So it's that willingness to come back. If you write a book, you can write a book in a day if you really wanted to, but then it's going back to that same book and then iterating and making it better.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the hardest part, because you'll create something and you'll go create something else and you'll go create something else, and it won't have a thread. You won't be like continuing to build on an idea. Because if you think about what is it that really makes an automation good, it's probably that you have experience in the topic. Like you understand the business part. If I don't create a lot of content, if I don't have my own YouTube channel, if I don't actually produce 100 pieces of content per week, then I don't really know how to do it.
Mm.
So there's a difference between building the automations and then having the business expertise that tells you what automations that you really need to build. So that's like when you get into a topic, if you get into content creation, if you get into voice agents, if you go deep on these topics, you'll have a much more nuanced ability to have discussions about these things. And, that'll make the difference. Like you want flashy marketing, which is that cool stuff, right? Which is that cool factor that gets people's attention. But then you want that mature point of view that makes it so that like when somebody actually watches more videos, they're like, oh, he actually seems like he knows about this process. Like he didn't just make an automation around content, like he actually makes content.
Yeah. And that's the eating your own dog food. And we're talking about the difference between logs and kindling, right? So kindling is this kind of quick fire, quick start, razzle dazzle, Gemini 3 Pro or something came out.
Yeah,
recently.
do whatever. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
And that gets interesting. And then there's these evergreen products, or evergreen content that you're saying, hey, watch my series of the last 37 videos that I've made on the content engine database as I've been evolving this database over time. And that's something that you can go into and watch that series and get value from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the key. Just making these things practical and useful. To make a $5,000 AI automation product, it's not that hard. You just have to show people that, hey, this is going to have a measurable impact on the sales or savings of my company. And if I look at that over 12 months and I can get this thing installed in the next 2 weeks, it becomes a no-brainer kind of thing. The only way you're going to develop something like that is if it's small enough in scope that you can just install it, right? Because it does everything automation and it touches into the whole thing. It's like, it's too complex for it to be that easy.
Yeah, the drag and drop automation. But that's the difference between AI automation agencies that come in and say, hey, I'll build anything that you want for your business versus I have a standalone product that is highly valuable that we can install into your business that produces value like immediately.
Which is also not a template, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, right? So there's the agency. I'm not knocking agencies. If you want to build an agency, fine. But to me, that is building a time and materials type business. You're not leveraging AI for yourself. You're helping other people leverage AI with your time and materials. That can be very profitable, but that's not what I want to do. I want to build it. I want to use AI to create leverage for me and my business. So that's either creating a template plus the process to really make use of that template. The template's worth nothing. It's the expertise of installing the template smoothly so that it works and the business is getting the value from it. That's what you're charging people for. The instant transformation of, yeah, I've got this cool template, but that's not the point. The point is that it's going to be seamlessly integrated into your company in 1 week. And when I do that, you will see this. That's what people are paying for.
Talk to me about the wraparound of N8N and other services. I know you do a lot of Airtable, and I know you integrate N8N and Airtable. Talk to me, what's this SaaS stack that you would say works well? And so it's not just, hey, buy my template.
Yeah, I think Airtable works well because it's like not a true SaaS in the sense that everyone wants that, right? Like you have a completely separate login and you log in and it's like completely separate and it's all your custom dashboards and all that stuff. And you can build that, but that takes a long time to build even with vibe coding. Airtable is really cool because you can, even though it's a database and you can store data like that, if you invest some time in like how things are set up, you can make it feel like an application for someone.
So you have like a login form on the front end, like there's a cut.
Not a login. You can do that if you give the person a user. I don't mean SaaS in the sense of it's got the login more, although you can do that, but you have to pay for each user's license. So people are always trying to avoid that but like once they log in, like what is that feeling? It's like you can interact with the data and make things happen as if it's an application, but it's not. And so you can build very complex things with Airtable and make it feel like a user interface without it actually being one and having the cost of building an interface.
A lot of people use like Google Sheets to get started, and then you hit like rate limits, you hit other issues. Yeah,
it's a little fungible. Like it's easy to make mistakes and delete a cell or anything like that. Like Airtable's a little bit more resilient.
Yeah, I had an old client that they were on Google Sheets and they ran their whole operations on Google Sheets. And so we initially started there, but then when you run N8N and you have the rate limits, I think it's maybe 60 API calls per
minute or something.
Yeah, in a minute like that, then it starts to freak out and crash on you. Then all of a sudden now you got to rehaul the whole system, which I've done in the past. So I'm like, are you sure you want to do Google Sheets? And they're like, okay, we probably should switch over to Airtable or something else, because also they would move around columns inside the Google Sheets and that would break. And so the N8N automation couldn't connect to it, stuff like that. Yeah. And so in terms of the primary benefits compared to the Google Sheets, what do you think those things are, especially with integrating with N8N?
It's a real database. And so the data integrity at scale is going to be better, less chances for mistakes, better automation support in terms of API limits and stuff like that. And then beyond that, you can really make it feel like as close to a user interface as you can make it without it actually being one. And that saves a ton of time, because I know vibe coding is cool and you can build out interfaces really quick, but to build out something like what Airtable gives you, that's not going to be easy. Airtable is very flexible.
What do you use N8N for in terms of your operational flow? How do you integrate it? What are the benefits of using that system versus others?
I mean, in general, I like N8N because it's very transparent. Like I'm a software developer, so it feels like it gives me more access to lower level stuff. But I personally find N8N very useful for building endpoints, essentially, almost like webhooks all the time, like to power either GPTs or to power SaaS front ends or to power Airtable applications. I'm often hooking into N8N mostly through webhooks.
The HTTP node is one of my favorite nodes of all times because it's just so flexible what you can do with it.
Yeah, and just being able to stand up processes and backend like endpoints very quickly, I think it is pretty cool.
And you said you hooked up into custom GPTs. Can you talk to me about like some use cases of that?
Yeah. So when I think about products that people can build, I think there's the one I built, which is a template plus like a process and coaching, essentially. And then I think there's a lot of room for stuff more like a GPT, where you've created a few different GPTs that are also hooked up to some automations that allow your customers to do something that they couldn't normally do. So like I built one a couple of weekends ago, which is really useful. So there's a 2-stage one, but I'll talk about the second stage one because it has more of the N8N automations. But essentially the way it works is you go there, you tell it the YouTube video that you're about to create. I've got a certain format where explains all the cool things about this video and why people should watch, all that kind of stuff. And then it will create a few different searches. And then it will hit a couple of N8N automations that I have that do like YouTube searches on that information. So it's a very simple automation on the back end. It's just a webhook that takes some search results and does a query against the YouTube API and then pulls all that data together and sends it back to the GPT. And then it helps me do title research and like thumbnail research and puts all that information there, pulls all those relative searches for me, and then helps me generate not necessarily the full thumbnail, but image artifacts that I might use in the thumbnail. And so it's just hooking up to a couple of N8N automations. So you got the GPT plugged into a couple of N8N automations, super simple, but very practical. Mm-hmm. And that's huge because when you make YouTube videos, like all that research takes time. And if it takes time, you might not do it. And then your video suffers. And so that's one of those things where it was a pretty simple idea, but the value of it's actually quite high. And I think people should be looking for those kind of opportunities where it's like high value, low work.
That's the best when you can find them. Yeah, you can find those ones are great. And then,
but they show themselves when you start to get into something.
Could you see where you're wasting your time versus this?
Right, because if you get into content, yeah, exactly. If you get into content creation, you'll come up with cool solutions. Yeah. But if you jump around from like content creation to voice agents to like CRMs to project management, if you're jumping around, you never really become like an expert at one of those things to come up with the cool ideas.
Yeah. Jack of all, master of none. And with the GPTs, I'm pretty sure this is how you do it, but tell me, is the way that you communicate the GPTs like inside of OpenAI and then you have action triggers using schemes and calling the N8N flow?
Yeah. And if you get stuck, because the schema is a little weird if you look at it, but if you just go to Claude or whatever and you just say, hey, I have an end-to-end automation, it has a webhook and I want to connect that to my GPT action. What's that text I need to cut and paste into OpenAI? It'll create that little block of text that you can just cut and paste. But as long as you stay present and ask things like how you do things, like you can make it happen pretty easily.
Yeah. It's gotten way easier. When I first did the action schemas back, they had to look at it and understand it and figure it out. But now you can very easily ask AI and how to solve that for you.
But people have to stay aware to that, right? Because a lot of times people they go look for help from some other person, and it's nothing wrong with that either. But it's like people don't do. If you get stuck, if you articulate it well to the AI, it will show you what to do. If you remind yourself that you should even ask, that's the thing.
Yeah. I feel like you need a little note card off to the side, sticky note, when stuck and do this.
I think people do need that because they'll forget and they'll make it more complicated. They'll use some other resource that is harder, or they'll try to understand it. Like understanding the OpenAI format for an action is not worth committing to your brain.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. So just ask somebody how to do it.
Ask AI. So now you got this concept right now of interview people, figure out the needs and wants, stay in a niche specific area. Then what you can start to do, build in public, create content around it, start to have a series of videos.
Make it more concrete. Mm-hmm. Make sure you make one video a week, minimum. And if the video is taking you too long so that you can't do it, then you need to make smaller projects.
Yeah.
That way you can test more ideas, because this isn't like a go spend 3 months building something and then show it. It's come up with a lot of mini ideas that get you creating, getting you in a place where you can show people stuff.
I like that. So step one, you interview these people, figure out what's going on. And then when you're talking about this other phase, okay, this is what I think I should work on. If you make a series of these micro videos, let's say micro SaaS ideas, I'm going to do doctors. Let's just say that. So I interview a bunch of doctors for what they want. And then maybe I help out a couple of high level doctors. Generally doctors have income for whatever, maybe they run their own doctor practice. Then from there, you can say, okay, I'm going to make a series of these little micro videos, at least once a week, if not more, and see which one of these core concepts pop off. If one pops off, let's just say, I don't know, I'm going to make it up, a peptide calculator system or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. And then they go, okay, cool, this is great. And then that one really popped off. Okay, great. Now I'm going to go deep in this area and I'm going to start to build out this crazy old peptide system that I can then install into doctors' businesses that allow them to whatever.
Yeah, but you can go into it, but I still think you want to keep it iterative. If you get lucky enough to come up with the idea and you make it and then the video pops off, I would go then try to sell that right away.
So you sell it before it's even built, or how does that work?
I would try to find a few people that were interested in something small. It's going to be different for every little project, but I would try to turn it into a little community that was interested in this topic. Maybe the peptide thing's that's a super niche.
Sure.
But if you were to find, if it's around doctors, I would try to create a little community around lead generation tactics for doctors in AI automation or something like that.
Yeah.
Someplace where you can create this little ecosystem where you can create all these little automations. And
you create a channel that maybe, let's say you do want to serve doctors, and we're just picking doctors, this one thing, right? You then start to test all these different ideas. One that maybe might hit that looks interesting. Then you're saying is maybe make a community, maybe a school community or circle or name a thing. And then you can say, hey, this is what we're about. We're about helping doctors with this core issue. Come on in as we start to work this together. Now you have this combination, because I think what's really powerful, whether it's school or any other community that you get into, is that if people are interested around a certain topic and maybe you do make an initial product or something like that, you are going to get a ton of feedback from those people inside this little ecosystem.
As long as you keep it iterative, right? As long as you keep putting new little test things out there for people to get interested in it. In this space, at least, this space in particular, you got to keep coming up with like little ideas that people grab onto. And you want to hear people saying, oh, that's cool. What if it also had this? What if it also did that? Not that you want to build all those things, but if you're not getting those kind of interactions, then something about your philosophy isn't working. And the key, though, is not to feel like you have to have that perfect thing in the beginning, because unless you get lucky, you probably won't have it. The real key here is you want to build a system for engagement, for systematic testing and just iteration and just being able to have a dialogue with people. That's what you're really trying to get.
I 100% agree in the areas of, if you can find people that are interested in what you're doing and giving you consistent feedback on the things that you're experimenting with, that is going to be your North Star of all, especially the right type of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally agree on
That's
that.
what you're trying to build. And I think anybody can build it. And the more niche you make it, the more risk there is in terms of it being wrong, which is actually a good thing because it just helps you sift through things faster. But the upside is that it's more meaningful to people.
Yeah. There'll be a small, passionate community of people that get into it. And
yeah, because when you think about like, most people don't have these endless budgets to just experiment like a big company. So you probably shouldn't play that way. Like most people, when they go to start a business, they need to make money pretty quickly. Like you got a couple of months.
Yeah,
that is not a lot of time.
Yeah. And so if you shorten the feedback cycle, I've known that because I've ran my own agencies even before AI. And what I've seen is that they spend a lot of time building, especially like if you have a client you're building from, they want to get it out in the marketplace. But they, instead of getting it out there in 1-2 months, they wait a year and then it gets out, they find out all the things that they need to change. And then that 11 months worth of development is now scrapped because you now got that initial feedback from that core audience. So how quickly can you have that feedback cycle spin up? And the quicker you can do that with experimentations and feedback and also creating content and driving content into your community, you're now able to make a much more valuable content and system.
It's more, and it's more interactive and people have to move a lot faster. And the hard part in that process is that you're very exposed. That's what people I think really have the hardest problem with is you're very exposed to, if you're doing this right, you're fumbling, you're making mistakes, you're building things that people don't like, that you're getting harsh comments, and that should be a good thing. That should tell you that what you're doing is working. But it's very hard when you're not used to that to go through that process because it's very distracting.
Yeah, there's the fantasy of being an entrepreneur in terms of, I want to create a SaaS product or whatever, and it sounds magical and wonderful, but then you don't want to show that ugly baby. That's the whole thing. It's like, you're like, oh no, don't, then you're going to judge me, you're going to judge my product, and then my fantasy gets dissolved, but that's the way truth comes out. That's the way that we make a better product.
Yeah, I think luckily for me, I like to show people my stuff. Mm-hmm. Since I was a little kid, I liked building things and trying to get people to buy it. Luckily, that force in me is stronger than all of the insecurities I have, which I have a lot of. But the need to show people stuff and try to encourage them, like I like to call you Dylan up and be like, Dylan, dude, you got to check this out. This is your podcast. What if it could do this? What if it could do that?
Yeah.
And I like to try to pitch it. And that urge inside of me is greater than all the insecurities I have. If it's not the case for you, people have to become aware of where they're stuck because my stuck is different than your stuck.
Yeah. And the thing is, if someone says, I want to make a SaaS product, then okay, great. Then how do you do that? And I think a lot of people, they have to translate from fantasy to execution to improvements. And that just is a thickening of the skin. And then just understand that it can be exciting because at least for me, the end result of getting feedback knows that I'm building something that's meaningful and matters. Because if you've ever built software before, there's nothing more painful than putting a ton of time into something and then you give it away and then it just gets thrown away. It seems fun until that output. And then you do that 3 or 4 times. You're like, you know what? I'm going to go to the front. So I can tell how your software.
Well, that's a good insight right there too. Like I was thinking about it is most people have to fail a bunch of times on their own to get the perspective to stop messing around. Because the thing is, once you have a business that works, you realize, oh crap, that actually took me like 3 to 5 years to even get going. So the price that you pay to start a business is not the 3 months that everybody talks about. It took 5 years. And so then you start to realize, oh, like if it took 5 years, I don't really have as many at-bats as I thought I did.
And you have to stay out long enough. Otherwise, you're going to perpetually do 2 years and then jump to 5 other ideas. And you're going to spend 10 years and not have anything.
Yeah. So people have to realize is that, everyone has time to make mistakes and recover, but a real good business is going to take 2 to 5 years to start. You don't have as many at-bats as you thought. Like how many 5-year periods do you really have? You have not as many as you think. You have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of them. Yeah. You got to treat those blocks with respect.
Yeah. Sounds like we're coming through this process now of this basically community-based SaaS model that you build in public, try to see if people are interested not just smile and nod, because I've seen that in businesses. So many times when you say, hey, what do you think about my product? And they just say, this conversation is really awkward. And I'm just going to say, this seems nice, but
you got to get somebody to pay for it.
Yeah. If someone actually pays for it, then they're invested. It's just the hardest thing for the fake signals is what people get. I did an event in LA for N8N and someone came up to me and they had this idea of this like workflow system kind of stuff. And he wanted direct to consumers, pay per workflow, and he's going to make it for everybody. And I was like, who are you serving? And he's like, the consumer. It was such a broad concept of what he was trying to get done. And I was like, man, you got to pick like get one person. Who are you trying to get? And then after that, he asked so many different questions, but I've just seen that of trying to boil the ocean. Doesn't really serve anybody at that time.
I think it's like a defense mechanism sometimes, because I think when you don't have specialized knowledge, then you come up with generalized solutions. And also that's going to be natural, right? If you don't really know how to do lead generation, then you're like, I'll just start automating like automated DMs, and that's the solution. And it's not going to work. So when you really start to learn an industry better, you're more nuanced and you have more experience to talk about things.
You want specialists, right? You want specialists in almost everything. If someone is like a really high level specialist, then they're going to outperform anybody else just because it's just time in. So when we're talking about this, it sounds like we've got a path from ideation to content creation to building in public to creating a community to then iterating on that model. And then if they iterate enough times in that community and are able to then now repeat and sell this and stick with that for a good period of time, then they start to build this valuable SaaS application.
Yeah. And I think they should try to be as aggressive as possible. Like you should go from, make a couple of basic ideas, maybe try to sell that template for $50, see if somebody will buy it. Like I'm not against templates as a whole, but I don't think you should build a business around it. But if you could sell a template for $50, it's a good thing.
Signal.
It's a signal.
Yeah.
And then what you want to do is then you want to see, how does that person implement it? Do they use it? And then you can you just want to keep giving people things. And then you probably want to move quickly from the $10 or $50 template to a $9.99 deal where it's, I'm giving you this template. It's been refined. It's been tested. And I have a specific process to walk you through that gets you installed. And then we have a call. I show you how to use it. It gets installed like that. You want to jump to there as quickly as you can to see if somebody will pay for that $9.99 version. And then if they do, then you're really onto something.
What I want to talk about, I want a specific use case from you that I'm going to call out that you did that I want you to expand upon. Paying for APIs.
Yeah. So I was making a bunch of videos on how to make faceless videos. And I was using all these different API services to do that, because you have to splice videos together and splice audio together. And a lot of people started complaining. They're just like, yeah, this is a really cool automation, but like running it costs like $10 because this subscription service, when you try to make a bunch of videos, it ends up costing a lot. And so then I was like, oh, okay, that is a real issue, right? It dawned on me just because I wasn't really worried about that. I was just trying to create the cool automation, and whatever it cost didn't matter. But then once people are actually using these things, it matters a lot. And so I just I'm a software developer. So I realized that the things that I was using weren't that complicated. So I built an open source API project that you can install on your own server and get the benefit of all of these APIs that we were calling, but it's just like almost free. But you have to try something to see the thing. You can't always see these things from the outside. I would never have known to create that had I not created something before.
And that's my whole point with this. So if anybody's listening to this, you want to start a SaaS company, a SaaS product around AI and automations and figure out what this thing looks like. When you build a community around this core, Steven's here was core content. It was working. The system was working, but there was a pain point. The pain point was it costs money. Whenever you show video on social media about a new AI tool, they're like, is it free? That's like the main question you get from anybody. So by seeing that, go, okay, cool. This does work, but if I can lower this number one complaint that people have by building a solution and then installing for them, now your system gets even better because it has the stacked value of what it delivers. And now you're reducing the friction of the cost of the system. And that only came about because of the complaints that you got from your community about the cool things you were building, which highlight the whole point.
You got to get complaints. If you don't get complaints, then you've got nothing to improve.
Complaints are the key way to success.
It's okay to be flashy and to create templates that get people's attention. But where I have a problem is where people fool you into thinking that those templates are going to be the things that actually help you build a business. They're not really.
No, it's a component of the whole solution. And that's the part of the whole situation here is like, how do we build these whole solutions for the right audience and then iterate them so the value stacks over time?
The hardest part about this process is that you won't stick to the process, probably. That's the hardest thing. Is like you'll start to do it and then you'll get distracted, or you'll have one bad day. Like you won't record that video and then it'll cascade into something else. And then it's hard to stay focused like that. It's not very easy. Our brains are programmed to get distracted. You'll see somebody else's brilliant process for some other product altogether, and you'll start to combine 20 different processes into one. You know what I mean? People can't keep it simple.
Yeah, the thing is we live in an attention economy, and they're constantly shiny objects that can pull you away. And if you can iterate on a core problem or long enough time, it stacks value, assuming that it's a real need in the marketplace, which is part of the whole soup to nuts on this one.
You always have to guess in the beginning, unless you're just blessed with a bunch of people around you where you can just talk to them. Some people have that. If you have, that's great.
Yeah.
But usually I think like ideas come from probably different for everybody, but it's a little bit inspiration and a little bit of discussion.
Yeah.
And a back and forth and going through that process. And unfortunately, it means that you can't do what you want to do every day because there's things you got to do.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. I worked with a really high level designer, and she was one of the top people in San Francisco and built thousands and thousands of products. And one of the things that I got from her, which I thought was incredibly, it's like, how do I find these people and how could I get them? And what does that look like? One of the things that we did as a strategy is basically made this little template that was like, hey, if you are busy moms who are trying to take care of 2-year-olds or whatever, we're looking for you. We're going to give you $50 for a 30-minute session to just get some feedback. And if you put that online, and if you're willing to pay 5 people $50 and then you just give them 30 minutes at a time, you could interview those people and then figure out.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah, well, it's one way to get in front of people.
It's one way, yeah. The thing is like usually a way to talk to people, you usually have to spend a little bit of time thinking about it creatively because you have to make it worth the other person's while. Mm-hmm. Either you got to pay them money.
Yep.
Or you got to say, hey, if we have this call, I know you're going to be giving me some time, you acknowledge it, but like in return, I'll be able to give you some good ideas or give you this or give you that. It's like you got to come up with something valuable to the other person.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, what I saw with her, she's, look, you could try to build a relationship and try to get them and see if they'll come in, or you can just give them $50 in an Amazon gift card, call it a day. And then you could have all of your interviews done in the next 3 days. So it's like speed, that's how you want to do it. Steven,
that's a very valid way of doing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to highlight all the blocks that people could have from getting started to creating the content to building the systems to building the community and then sticking with it long enough.
You know what the funny thing is though? I guess there's going to be commonalities between the blockers, and I'll be able to help people with better with the blockers that I've had. But people have to get good at diagnosing themselves and figuring out what's really the blocker, because people really aren't really that honest with themselves. And the problem is usually more obvious than people think. And I almost feel like it's better to teach people how to like diagnose themselves and not lie to yourself than it is than giving you the perfect process. Because if you're starting a business and you don't have any customers, like that's the biggest problem. But sometimes people will say, no, it's because I don't have the skill I don't know the N8N skill. I don't know how to do an AI agent yet. So that doesn't really matter because you don't have any customers. But people don't know how to just be dead honest with themselves. If you don't have customers, nothing else matters. It just doesn't.
And the only way you can get customers is to provide something that's valuable. And the only way to provide something valuable is to understand what is it that people really need and want and get them to be honest with you to say, yes, I really do find this to be valuable and I'm willing to commit time or money to this thing because I think it is valuable.
And which means that you have to spend the time to articulate that to enough people.
Yeah.
And that usually means not so much building an end-to-end automation. It means like going out to a networking group or creating content or texting people in your address book.
Yeah. Whatever.
It's all really boring. It's super boring stuff. Like, I don't want to do that. Who wants to go on to LinkedIn Navigator and like search for a bunch of people to talk to? That sounds deadly boring, but that's what you have to do.
And it's either that or spend 6 months building something that nobody wants.
Yeah, see, that's even more painful. When you do that a few times, then you won't do that anymore. Some people just have to have that experience. I see people, they say they're starting a business and then I see them disappear and they say that it didn't work. And I'm like, what didn't work? And it's what they didn't even do anything. Yeah. They literally didn't do anything. They just sat around in their house and just tinkered with stuff for 6 months. And then we're just like, oh shit, I don't have any money anymore. And it's actually quite obvious that this is going on, but people are not facing their true fears. They're not facing the reality of things.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, if you look at your system, you yourself is your personal operating system, and there's 100% productive where all you do is do highly focused mostly signal, no noise, 100% of the time.
I wish that was true.
I'm just saying that's like the
actually,
ideal.
I don't know.
Then you go, then you look at your actual day. One of my favorite things that I ended up doing with one of my old people is they had me do a 15-minute audit through my entire business, right? And I realized, wow, I am wasting so much time. If that's what's really going on, then how do I carve back and get more time to focus on things that are the values of my life, whatever that might be? How much?
Yeah, most people try to optimize their time when in reality, what they should do is just get rid of the stupid stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? I think it's more just when you remove everything else, you're left with nothing else other than your thoughts and what you're going to do with yourself. And I think that's an uncomfortable place to be for a lot of people. Because you're like, when you have a boss, the boss will tell you what to do. But when you have a business, you're responsible for essentially deciding what that thing is. And that makes you accountable for your failure or your losses, or for your success or your loss. And I think that in itself is the struggle that people have. It's just like, and so then they just find a way to just fill themselves with distractions. And then those distractions dictate their day, whether it's a new thing you have to build or a new thing you have to do or a new special process that's going to give you the secret business or whatever it is. And you just never get around to just facing your own mind and the things that you have to do.
Yes. If you look at anybody that wants to, we'll say, get good at N8N. Right. Okay, cool. I've seen people that when people ask me like, how do I get good at N8N? Because I want to be an agency or whatever. They'll watch a bunch of different YouTube videos and maybe they'll try something here or there. And I say, here's what you need to do. Figure out what category you want to go into, say voice agents or RAG or content creation. Okay, find some.
And it's just a guess. Like you might not even really know. It's just like you're guessing. You don't even. You might be interested in one, but you might not. So you just better pick one.
I'm saying pick one. Figure out who's the best at that. Pay some money, go join that community or something, and then only go through that course. Delete your YouTube, delete your TikTok, delete everything you've got, and just commit to that one path until you can complete a transformational cycle. Go through a learning path until you get that. And that's otherwise you kind of like, you watch 5 minutes of a YouTube video or you watch a TikTok, you watch something else, and there's all these like micro steps versus this one big.
I do hope they picked the right person, but yeah.
Well, they could crush through that in a couple of weeks and then be done. And then they would know, oh, that's it.
They would know whether,
They'd know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And if that doesn't work, great. Drop it, shift to another one. Try something different. Okay. So it's not just interview people. We're going to go a step in front of interviewing people, which is interview yourself. All right.
Well, I do think that's important because you have to have your own direction. To me, it doesn't make sense. You're going to follow this perfect process, which is the only way that could only create some other product that existed before. And then you're just a copycat. I guess if you want to be a copycat, it could work. But yeah, all of the good stuff is in figuring this stuff out for yourself and being able to just look at what you're doing. And does it make sense? Am I putting my time in the right place? Does it logically work out? Like the most basic things, if you're going to sell SaaS, that can project something very specific. Like most SaaS products are it's like a SaaS that you log into and it's $50 a month. If you're brand new to business, does creating a $50 a month business make sense if you've got a 3-month runway? Like how many customers are you going to need? That's why I often talk about the 5K product is better because you don't need as many customers to meet your basic living standards. Like in order to have a SaaS that's $50 a month, you're going to need a lot of customers that stay there.
Yeah.
And how are you going to get that many customers? That's a lot of work. That's probably not, if you don't have any audience yet, that's going to be really hard.
Yeah,
that's just thinking about your business model practically.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need like special training to do that. That's more just stopping for a second and saying, wait, does this even make sense? I need to make money I need to be making 10 grand a month by 3 months from now. Am I going to be able to come up with a SaaS product that gets me there in 3 months? Maybe, but probably not.
Especially not like $50 or $20, but it depends on how quickly you can move down these stages, right? Identify what is.
Most people are not going to be able to do that in 3 months.
No.
Though, like there is the entrepreneur that has that mindset that could, but that's not most people.
Yeah, there's a lot of 100%. Then there's a lot of things. If you've done it before, you can do it again, right? Wow. Yeah. But if you haven't, then you've got to get through. How am I wasting my time or spending my time? How do I interview these people to get through the things? And then you march down those steps, and then you can move through that, and just figure out if you get stuck. Is there different ways to get stuck? Maybe you can chat.
Yeah, that's why when you sell something for 5K, in 3 months, you only need 6 customers. Yeah. That's much more doable for more people.
Yeah.
That's real. That is realistic. Getting 6 customers in 3 months, each paying you $5,000 a month. It's very practical, very realistic.
Yeah.
Not easy, but very realistic.
Yeah. And as long as you're building something that delivers value to those types of customers and you've identified a core need, and then you're able to create something for them, even if you are doing a little extra work for the initial couple of customers, you solve those problems.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
100%. Love it. Stephen, this has been awesome having you on. I think we've been able to identify a pathway here from soup to nuts, from
the pathway is get off your butt and do something.
Seek those complaints out, iterate on them, remove the distractions in your life. And I think it's beautiful. Is there anything else?
Yeah, the hardest part is this is not a technical challenge. If people think about it, it's like AI is only getting easier. The technical pieces of it are all getting easier. What it is it's a personal challenge to allow yourself to do the things you need to do. It's much more about that than it is a technical thing. Like the tech is only going to get easier and easier, more accessible.
Yeah, it's just is mostly overcoming the natural human constraints of distraction and shiny objects, staying consistent. It's the basic, it's so funny, the automations, the basic boring the ones that work, and the same things with what you need to do in life. It's the basic boring things that get all the results that people want, right? You want to get fit, real easy. Eat less than you burn, right, kind of thing, and then go to the gym. And just do that for 10 years, and it'll be great.
Yeah, exactly.
Steve, is there anything else you'd like to let people know about before you can tell them how to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you only got one life, so, to use your time wisely.
Cool. And if people want to find you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can find me on my school community, and I teach people how to set up these businesses and think them through. And so if you go to school.com with a K and then go to No Code Architects, then you'll find me there.
Stephen, been an honor and pleasure, my friend. Much love, and I will see you on the other side.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
See you. Bye now.
Appreciate it.